This is Mr. Donovan. You probably can't see my face. Hopefully you'll be able to hear my voice. And I'm going to take a few minutes to try to make a video to show you how to make a paper rocket. And then that way, if you have any questions or you're confused in the building process, you can run over to your computer, open up the movie, and watch this. I will try to make it as brief as possible. So here we go. You should have gotten a piece of construction paper. Okay, I just picked orange because I thought it would show up pretty good for the camera. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead, I'm going to take and fold it to get a piece that I'm going to use to make the fins to the rocket. Okay, the rest of it I'm going to use for the body. So I'm going to crease my paper, try to get a pretty good crease on it, fold it over the other way, crease it again. If you get a good enough crease, you should be able to just tear the paper without cutting it. The next question you have to answer is whether you want a fairly tall rocket, or you could actually roll it this way for a taller rocket this way, or you could actually trim your paper down and make even a smaller rocket. So whatever you choose to do, I'm going to go ahead and, since this is about the length of the tube now, I'm going to use my rocket this way. This is the part that gets a little trickier, and it probably will go easier with help, but I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of pieces of tape. In fact, if I do it this way, I can just put the tape on here about halfway. Okay. Let's do this again. Again, with help from a neighbor, it might be a little easier to use one piece of tape, but I'm going to try this by myself because you might be working by yourself and don't always have help available. So I'm going to go ahead and put. There we go. Now when I roll my paper along the tube, and again the tube is the same size as the launcher, so you want this to be fairly snug, so you got to kind of use your fingers to tuck it in there as you start rolling it. And then as you roll, you want to make sure that you roll it straight. You don't want it crooked. So I'm going to kind of get it rolling here. And there we go. And then the tape should seal it. There we go. Okay, looks pretty good. Push down on the tape, make sure I get a good seal. There's a couple places along here now where I've got a gap, so I can at this point maybe take one longer piece of tape and put it along the tube of the body. That'll just help reinforce it. The next step along the way is to seal the nose of your rocket. So I just pull the tube out a little bit so that I have a little space there, and I just pinch the nose, and I pinch the nose over like that just to kind of crimp it. At this point I'm just going to take a small piece of masking tape to hold it shut. Okay. This you definitely don't want to come undone because then all the air will go right out the nose of the rocket and it won't launch. I usually take a couple pieces of masking tape to fill that gap in there. Get some shape. Yeah, I didn't do a very good job pinching this one. Now I'm going to take a couple of pieces of masking tape and just go over the top of the nose here like this. A few different directions here. And then I'm going to take and wrap around this way to seal those pieces of tape. There we go. Now my nose is sealed pretty well. Notice this is fairly snug. Now the last thing is I'm going to take a small piece of tape right in here where I don't want it to unravel in there. So where I see that piece of paper on the inside, I'm just going to put one piece of masking tape here, or Scotch tape, to keep that from really unraveling so that hopefully my tube we'll continue. There we go. Next thing is the fins. This is kind of the trickier part. Your fin, this is way too flimsy, so I'm going to fold it over so I have a double piece of paper. You don't want the folded side to be going up through the air, so you want the leading edge folded. So if I had my rocket here like this, then I could kind of envision this being my fin. So I'm going to have to cut it. So for you it's kind of backwards, but here's my folded side, and I'm going to cut down at an angle. Okay, hopefully now you can kind of see how that's beginning to take the shape of a fin. Now I'm going to come back over this way and cut across. And so there is my fin. I can open it up, unfold it. Okay, so now I'm going to use this as a template, and I'm going to make a couple of more. I'm going to put at least 3 fins on my rocket, so I'm just going to hold that there, the folded edge against the folded edge, and I'm going to cut this fin out. I've got 2, and last but not least, I should be able to get my 3rd fin out of this piece of paper. Put it up here like that, and I am going to cut my last fin out. Now, the next step is to glue these or tape them onto the rocket. There's not really much there to keep them on, so this is the way this works. Go ahead and I put all 3 of these together. Should pretty much be the same size, but just open these up. Okay. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch down, make a little cut down the center there. Now when I open these and I fold it again, here's where the cut is, and that allows me to fold this back like that, flip it over, fold it back again, so that now when I open that up like that, I have a place with which to tape the fin onto the rocket. So hopefully that made sense. So I'm going to put my tube back in my rocket so that I don't crush it when I try to squeeze it. I'm going to take my first fin and I'm going to make sure that it gets lined up straight with the rocket. I don't want it taped on crooked. That'll cause my rocket to spin. I want it straight up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up. And I'm going to hold one side with my thumb, and on the other side I'm going to take a piece of Scotch tape and just set it on the top of the fin. Then I'm going to line the fin up where it needs to be and then push down and tape it to the body of the rocket. I'm going to flip it around this way, do the same thing. Take a piece of Scotch tape, push my fin over, so it's lined up where it needs to be, and seal that on there. Now I have 2 more to do. They should be spaced evenly around the rocket. Again, 360 degrees in a circle. That means that every 120 degrees I should have a fin placed. We're not going to go ahead and do the whole math and draw on the circle and the compass and all that. We're just going to simply eyeball it. It's called eyeballing it. So I'm going to go ahead and take my next fin. I'm going to fold this back like I did with the first one. Okay. Flip it over, fold this back this way again. Okay, that's what it looks like. If I open it back up, that's what it would look like. So I'm going to fold this back. And I'm going to hold my rocket and I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to say, well, that looks about right. Again, I wish we would have had a week to work on this project, not one day, but once again, I'm going to tell you, go over to dance class if that's where you're going and work as hard as you can, and then hopefully at the end of school you'll be doing some neat project or having a whole lot of fun doing something else. And last but not least, I'm going to take my final fin, fold this back, this, fold it back. It's my last fin. Pull that up, kind of make sure that it's lined up where it needs to be. Take a piece of tape. One thing I've learned is that Scotch tape does not go over masking tape very well. So when I'm using Scotch tape, I try to stick with Scotch tape. On the nose, there's enough paper that doesn't have Scotch tape on it that, you know, that works. But the last thing I'm going to do is all these little openings on my fin can catch air. So I'm going to try to seal those up with a piece of Scotch tape. So I'm going to take my Scotch tape and put it right at the top of the fin. And then I'm going to wrap it around, sealing and keeping down the other part of the fins. Okay. Then when I'm done, I think they look like they're lined up pretty good. Okay, evenly spaced, not perfect. Now this little folded part of the paper here, if you want, you can just take a really small piece of Scotch tape and just go ahead and put that on there and then seal that to make it a little more stable. And we aren't going to get into the science of, you know, what's going to make a good rocket or a bad rocket, or what might make one fly farther than the other. So, but there we go. That's my basic finished product, and hopefully you'll get yours done. I don't know how long this took. I can take a look at the video when we're done and tell you how long it took. But there we go. We built a paper rocket, and hopefully tomorrow we'll go out and we'll all launch ours and see who goes the farthest. And if next year you're in my class, hopefully we'll work on actually making movies like this one. And hope you had a good 6 weeks. Hope you learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Bye.